Okay, so we are in the customer portal and now you're going to schedule an inbound shipment. So this is an inbound shipment from your supplier to Central Virginia Prep. So what you want is to think about Central Virginia Prep as the hub, which makes sense here because inbound is to us, outbound is from us. So um, we can easily get confused. We've had a few confusing email exchanges with customers about this. But this is how we know. This would be similar to what you currently do now, when you just fill in your spreadsheet and email the office to let us know, that you expect a certain amount of volume. For, smaller shipments, a pallet or two, that's not an issue. For people who are doing full shipping containers, obviously, we do definitely want to know ahead of time because unloading shipping containers is like a full court press. You need a basketball team. So it's pretty straightforward. As you can see, you've got a button here. You have to add an inbound shipment, or rather, we need to add an inbound shipment on a per SKU basis. So even though your shipment might include multiple SKUs, we obviously can't just be like, hey, you're expecting a shipment. We got to start here. If you do not have on this spreadsheet, or I mean, on this chart, the inventory that you're expecting, you're going to have to go back and add to the and add your, oh, really, sorry about that, I timed out and had to log back in. So if you didn't have everything on your inventory list that you plan to bring in, if this is new stock, in other words, or even if it's the same stock but has different sized cartons, I've seen that happen before, you're going to want to add a new product here first. But as you already have a new product, you can also add an inbound shipment from this portal here. So those are the two like most common actions. So it opens up its new tab here. Um, so we do have two shipment types. It's thankfully quite rare, but we do occasionally have people need to do an Amazon removal order. And so we have a special workflow for that, just because Amazon removal orders are like their own special logistics nightmare. But normally you'll just do case pack and then how's the shipment arriving, air freight or oceanic. Oceanic's probably, well, before the pandemic, oceanic was really the most common. Now it's not uncommon to have air freight. Dock date. So oftentimes you won't have a specific dock date necessarily. Sometimes your freight forwarder will give you one, sometimes they won't. Usually they'll say, here's your ship date, and your dock date will be like 4 to 6 weeks after that. So using that, you can kind of triangulate. If your ship date was, uh, well, most of China shut down for this month, so this is a bad example. If your ship date was like, say, March 1st, March 1st, then you could reasonably expect, depending on where your arriving dock is, that your shipment will arrive, maybe April 4th, 5th. Dock location. Again, you might not have this. Might be something you have to ask your freight forwarder. But of course, we do prefer the Norfolk port, just because it is A, close, and B, not too backed up compared to all of the West Coast ports. So, and then finally, projected arrival date. So this is different from the dock date. That's because the ship docks in port, obviously. But then, like, it's just like unloading an airplane, right? Like, just because you've taxied up to the door doesn't mean that everything gets unloaded instantaneously. So it takes a while for all people to shuffle off, and it takes a while for all the bags to be unloaded from underneath, and then the bags have to go out to the baggage claim. It's like a whole thing. So similarly, different ports at different times, and depending on where your shipping container is within the boat, will be unloaded at different, speeds. So again, we don't expect this to be fixed in stone. This just gives us sort of a starting point to start planning. So if your freight forwarder says, oh, it'll take about a week to unload, no problem. If your freight forwarder says, oh, it'll take, a couple, maybe 3 weeks to unload, no problem. Just kind of let us know what we can expect, because obviously I don't know what's going on at all of the different docks. And to be honest, your freight forwarder probably doesn't necessarily know what's going on at all of the docks, but he or she is in the position to know a lot more than I am. So we just want to kind of have a general idea of what we can expect. So let's say if it came in on the 5th, we would maybe expect it to arrive about the 18th. So you can, you don't have to put any shipment creation notes in here, but if you just wanted to be like, hey, freight forwarder said 4 to 8 weeks considering delays. Sometimes it's just not quite enough to just say, dates. You might want to add context. It's not super duper important. We're just kind of trying to get an idea. More information is better than less information, I generally find. Unexpected position at 0. Not that. Not that. Not that. All right, we'll just try sending it again, and it works. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so now you've officially scheduled a shipment. We know a shipment is coming, but now we need to add products to it. So here are your products. So obviously we're going to need some lembas bread. Let's say we're getting 100 cartons. And so we're going to get you to do a little bit of math. And the reason for this is not obvious, because obviously a computer can easily do quantity times cartons. But what tends to happen for, especially for the smaller sellers or for the people who get their own goods manufactured, is they'll get like a certain number of widgets created. And then the widgets will fit in boxes in say, 30, 32 or 24, a number that seems reasonable in the cartons, but then just doesn't divide evenly into the total number of widgets that you got created. So if you knew that you created, let's just say you created, I can't do the math backwards in my head, but let's just say that you were going to wind up with a partial carton afterwards. Technically speaking, you're supposed to be getting 5,000, but let's say you just had 4,900. No, that wouldn't even work. 49.99 coming randomly. Then we could just we would just kind of know that ahead of time. It wouldn't necessarily be enough to cause issues at the other end, because obviously we do see frequently these cut down or smaller cases that only have 4 items in them when there's supposed to be 8, and we're used to it by now. But at the same time, we're not totally sure that the client knows that that's what happened. And so when you say, okay, yes, technically speaking, this amount of cartons should be X, but actually the total number of items will be Y, then we're like, oh, good. They're aware of this issue and we don't have to try and explain it. So that's why we have you do your own math. Long story short, it's not because we want to torture you. And feel free to double check this with a calculator, because God knows I should have to do that. And then notes, there's not necessarily any notes needed. We just want to give you the option in case. So you save this product into the shipment that we created, and man, many extensions is loading slow today. Really? Of course it knows that everybody's waiting on me. to show them what to do, watch this. There. All right, see? Just refresh. Try it again. All right, so we're going to do, just to show you what can happen, we're going to add another item to this inbound shipment. Let's do hobbit-sized cloaks. So there's 10 cloaks per carton, and we're going to order 50 cartons, and that will equal 500. All right, so when you've created all of the items in your shipment, you can just close the tab and go back to this one. So you have to refresh this page, and it will show you which items are in your shipment. Oh, look, my first lembas bread carton came through. So I might have to edit that. That might be the sort of thing. I'm going to see if I can edit it back on the inbound port on the portal. And if I can, that'll be the sort of thing that you email the office and be like, hey, I refreshed my form and it did a double entry. And we'd be like, oh, we'll deal with that for you. So you can see we've got the 50 cartons of cloaks and technically 100 cartons of bread. And it kind of figures out the cubic feet. This is good for us because then we're like, oh, that's like 3 to 4 pallets. So then we kind of just know how much space you're going to need and when you're going to need it, which is obviously good because space is finite. Portal. And we're going to go to your inventory list again. All right, so I actually have multiple shipments set up here. So you can see that we have some scheduled to arrive here. We have the lembas bread, we have the cloaks, warm and stylish. So you can go into inbound shipments, and I'll probably have to log in again if the forms. Oh, nice! I didn't have to log in again. Okay, so you can see the one that I set up earlier, and the shipment created, a date in, projected status, dock date, dock location, so on and so forth. So one thing that we'd like you to do, you won't have this initially, right? So tracking info is for the space of time between the shipment leaving the dock and the shipment arriving at our facility. So if it's coming into Norfolk, it'll be here so fast, most likely, that we won't even really have time to get the tracking number out of you. But if it's landing in Port of LA, and that stuff can take like 10 days to get across the country. I had one time that a single pallet took almost 3 weeks to get across the country. It was awful. So anyways, your shipping, your freight forwarder may or may not share with you tracking information about your shipment from the docks. And this is usually for LTL freight. I tend to get direct phone calls if you've got a full shipping container coming, but if your stuff came over as part of a shared shipping container and it got unloaded at the docks and loaded onto pallets, then at that point it gets handed off to a LTL freight company, and at that point it should pick up a tracking number or a tracking link. So this is helpful for us because what tends to happen is they'll give you they'll say, okay, such and such freight company picked up your stuff and it's expected in Waynesboro on such and such a date. But what I've found is that the such and such a date that they give you is like based on the best case scenario. And what is actually happening is that your shipment is effectively hitchhiking across the country. So because it's less than a truckload, right? It'll like hitch a ride on a trailer, and then it'll go to like the next sorting hub, basically. It'll get dropped off there, and it'll get a ride on the next trailer going in sort of the right direction that has enough room, all other things being equal relative to other things that it could be taking. So it's not a straightforward process to begin with, and secondly, like the less freight you have, the more it seems to slow down its process across the country. So if you give us the tracking number, then instead of me emailing you and being like, hey, your stuff was expected here a week ago according to my notes, and it's still not here, have you heard anything? Should we be concerned? You can just give me the tracking number and I will follow up on it. And any notes, of course, whatever you think seems reasonable to tell me, can go right in there. So back here, tracking notes, tracking number. This is all very straightforward. Most people will not have a ton on this page because obviously once the shipments are received, they disappear. And so you'll probably only ever have like 2 to 3 lines in here max, right? So hopefully that was pretty straightforward. There is a variety of places that you can access or create your inbound shipments. Obviously, you can do it straight from your inventory, or you can do it from forms. I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't a button here on helpful resources either. Oh, well, not this time. So hopefully that is helpful, and this will reduce a lot of back and forth emails.